Oh. Mm-hmm. This is definitely a format. Yep. So Snake Eyes Popular basically came out at the same time in Master Duel as it did in the TCG, and that deck's been dominating the TCG ever since it came out. And people have been building their decks in certain ways to deal with the Snake Eyes meta. And I've built my deck that I've used to get the Master 1 this season. It's the same way as people have in the TCG, basically. And, you know, avert your eyes for a sec if you're not a fan of these kinds of decks, but basically, we're putting in every hand trap we possibly can against the Snake Eyes. Now, Snake Eyes in Master Duel is not as dominant as it is in TCG because it doesn't have Bonfire, but you can still beat it the same way, and the fact that it's weaker in Master Duel just means that this time of strategy that already kind of is basically the best way to deal with it in TCG, it should definitely work here in Master Duel when the deck is weaker. And the idea is you just hand trap your opponent twice. If you can resolve 2 hand traps versus your Snake Eyes opponent, it should be enough to get you to your turn to where you can play. Now, in theory, that's how it works, but the reality is the Snake Eyes, your Snake Eyes opponent is also going to be running 15 plus hand traps, and you also have to not get cooked by their hand traps. And a lot of games you have with your opponent this format, because you know, Snake Eyes isn't the only deck that runs a ton of hand traps, because the hand traps are getting better in this Master Duel format. You're just gonna see, I've seen the rise of Kashtira and Math decks. Both of those have tons of room for non-engine. Both of those also run a similar amount of like 14 to 15 plus hand traps in them. Super Heavy Samurai, well, it's on the decline or on the decrease in play. I'll speak on Droll later, but I think Droll is not quite as good at this format, and if people are going to drop Droll, then Super Heavy Samurai is going to come back, and Super Heavy Samurai also runs 15 plus hand traps. So a lot of games you're going to have currently in this Master Duel format is just a bunch of... It's like you're almost comparing hands for your opponent. You're seeing, oh, so who has the proper hand trap for the opponent, and who has the outs to their hand traps. Like if I have the called by to your hand trap, then I win. If you have the called by for my hand trap, but I don't have the bell, then I lose. It's a lot of that. And like, you know that if you ever push through your turn, then there's like a higher chance that you're gonna be in a much better position than you would be in a lot of other formats, because most people's interactions with you are gonna be in the form of hand traps. These decks don't really run too many board breakers, at least the decks that I've mentioned that are still among the top decks. So if your play got resolved, that doesn't mean your opponent has all gas necessarily, unless they're playing branded. That basically means that your opponent didn't draw their hand traps. So you know, lucky you. And I have played this deck this ranked season just so I can test which hand traps are good and which hand traps aren't, just for a DC Cup next format, just so we can like pinpoint which hand traps we should be running for the format. And if you want like a more detailed video on me like discussing the hand traps in the DC Duelist Cup format, I guess I could make a video on that later. But as you can see, for this deck, we have room for 17 hand traps, and I really wanted to fit in the 18th just because the 2-3 ratio of Ghost Girls looks a little ugly to me. It's throwing off my OCD. But yeah, in order to fit all these hand traps, I need to play quite a minimal amount of Spright cards in this. So actually, if you haven't built Spright before and you want to play a deck like this, this is you can actually build this affordably now, because we have I believe the new Spright Secret Pack came out in this update, so you can all the UR Spright cards, which is basically Elf, Gigantic, and Blue, you don't have to craft them anymore. You can just roll them, and then for the Life Twin URs, there isn't actually that many Life Twin URs you need. This secret password is completely not necessary. This is like, you do not have to run this at all. This is a completely optional UR. I only run it because I already had the Life Twin cards, but yeah, and then that's pretty much it. You don't need the Evil Twin Trouble Sunny either. If you wanted to just build this deck, you could just you can just pull cards from the Spright Pack, and then just craft all of the under UR rarity Life Twin cards. because I guess I'll get to why I'm playing these two and why these don't actually matter too much when I get to them in the deck profile. But yeah, the Spright cards, they're at a minimum right now. There are 2 blue, 1 jet, 1 red, 1 carrot, and then the 2 starters, Smashers and Gamma Burst. Gamma Burst is like the best card in the deck. I wasn't running this before in Live Twin Spright, but I really think you need to run this now. It just ends games so easily. It's like running multiplication in MathMech. It just gives you so many more OTK lines to end the game early. If you get Max E going second, well, as long as you get your Jet Search in, you can kill your opponent after you hand trap them a few times. So yeah, I would definitely run this in any non-runic Spright build going forward. Obviously, don't run Spright Gamma Burst and runic Spright for quite obvious reasons. And you could run more copies of Red and Carrot, but honestly, I would rather draw a Mourner versus going second versus Snake Eyes than I would an extra copy of Carrot and Red. You do run out of Spright copies of Spright monsters, so like be careful. Like if you already open a Spright monster and like a starter, then turn 3 you won't actually have anything to summon out the deck with Gigantic or summon with starter. So just keep aware of that. But generally you don't need more copies of these unless they get banished, which they generally shouldn't. These aren't even dark, so you can't even Bestial really Red or Carrot. Like just get them in circulation, and then most of the time if you need them, you would arrive them with Elf. You don't need to just search extra copies of Blue and Jet just to get them out of your deck. Like after you get them all in circulation within your first turn, well, number one, most games don't last past turn 3 anyway, so the grind you get out of extra copies of these doesn't quite matter. And we don't need to use these as extenders because we're supplementing the Spright Engine with the Live Twin Engine. The Live Twin Engine gives you all the level 2 bodies you need. You don't need extra Spright monsters to facilitate your plays. Explaining the Live Twin ratios, we have 3 Leela and 2 Kill. Leela is the best one because Leela gets Kill Frost from the deck, and Kill Frost is the better of the Live Twin Halloween costumes. I guess that's what the theme of these 2 cards are, the extenders. Since this gets you a draw on your opponent's turn, whereas this just modulates attack. And I honestly don't think I've ever used this in Leela treats Engrave effect once while playing this deck. I think I've only ever used this as an extender. But yeah, I'm running the 5 copies of these just so standard Yu-Gi-Oh math. If you want to only open one copy of a certain type of card, you play 5 copies of it. These are my normal summons, so you don't want to open 2 normal summons. So I do want to see these, so you run the 5 for the ratios and then 3 copies of Sunny Snitch. Just so Sunny Snitch is not redundant, because if you open Sunny Snitch with one of these, then you can use Sunny Snitch to grab the extender of your choice for next body. So it's not like you're opening multiple normal summons like you would of these. And Secret Password is just an extra copy of Live Twin Lila. Again, if you don't want to craft this, you can just play a 3rd Kill. It's completely fine. I'm just doing this to maintain the versatility of the ratio so that I can search Sunny Snitch if I already have a normal summon, as opposed to if this was a Kill and I already opened a Leela, then it would just be a dead card in hand until next turn. Now, I would not have ran this last format because this card gets absolutely cooked by Droll, but if you notice, I'm not running Droll in my deck, even though I'm running 17 Handtraps, because frankly, me, and it's not just me, but a lot of good players are realizing that Droll is just not really that good against Snake Eyes. That Droll is basically just strictly worse Valor and Imperm against them, because you don't hit the first search. You can only hit the second search, which is basically they can Snake Eyes Ash, get the popular special to popular, and then you can Droll. So at best case scenario, you're Drolling them so they don't get the field spell, but they already have the 2 bodies on field. They get Flamebird from deck. They can already do most of their plays off of the 1 card. Like the Droll itself is not very effective against the new Snake Eyes deck, which is one of the most popular decks you're going to face. It's also not good against most of the other tier 1 decks too. Like Droll is not good against Branded at all, especially if Dragon players are aware and they don't just randomly Albion the Shaw Dragon to upstart for a card. Then Droll actually actively does nothing against that deck. They their first search, add Branded Fusion, and then finish their searching. and you're left with a Droll that you resolve that, frankly, you probably don't even want to resolve half the time, because then that cuts you off from your maxi. And, you know, against Labrynth, Droll against Labrynth, imagine. There's only really 2 commonly played ish decks where Droll is absolutely great against, like Super Heavy Samurai and Mannadium. And I'm gonna be honest, I've played against 1 Mannadium deck this entire month so far. I don't know what happened to that deck. I've literally played against Mannadium more in the Synchro Link Festival than I have on ladder, which is like that does not make any sense whatsoever, because the deck is way worse in the Synchro Link event than it is in standard. But I get it's people are just not playing on that deck, so if you're not gonna face Mannadium, then Droll isn't. That's like one of the good matchups Droll is for, and the other one is Super Heavy Samurai, which obviously, yeah, it's good to have against Super Heavy, but at the end of the day, if you're only gonna if you're gonna face like 6 top tier decks or something, and like Droll is only really hitting one of those decks, do you really want to run a card like that? I guess you could just like take the L when you face Super Heavy, I suppose. When you don't have Maxi, which by the way, Maxi already kind of cooks Super Heavy anyway. So, you know, for the Handtraps that I am running, Maxi, Ash, and Imperm are. Unfortunately, I think Ash is still stable. In the TCG, this is actually not stable, because ashing your opponent's monsters leaves you up to getting heated, which, you know, cooks you. But unfortunately, because Maxi exists in our format, we gotta run this for the Maxi. And then Valor is just the next best one. It's literally just 3 more copies of Infirm, and Valor's really good against the Snake Eyes deck. The 2 unconventional choices are Bell and Mourner. So I think Mourner is really damn good, especially against Snake Eyes. The only coverage it misses is on exactly normal summon Snake Eyes Ash, which I guess if you get cooked on that, I suppose. If you have none of your other 15 hand traps and all you have is Mourner and they normal summon Ash, yeah, I suppose that feels kind of bad. But when they access the Ash through any other ways, such as with the Wanted engine or with original Sinful Spoils, Mourner basically cooks them. It gives you like your 7th and 8th copies of Valor and Infirm. I actually want to find room for a 9th one just because it's like actually so good. And if you open any 2 of Mourner plus like Valor and Infirm, like that's pretty much good against most decks. And the Ghost Spell is for coverage against decks that the other hand traps might necessarily not be as great against, which is basically stuff like Labrynth and Mathmech, which Labrynth already isn't that tough of a matchup for Life Twin Spright. That you actually kind of cook that matchup. Going first, you should win like 90% of your games, except I get the games for Maxi resolve, so that's more like you should win every game going first that Maxi doesn't resolve against you, so like 80% of your games versus Lab, and then if you just run Ghost Spell and Ash, like really, it just kind of cooks that deck. I don't think I've lost Labyrinth once in a long time with this deck. And against Mathmech, because you know if they open Circular, you gotta open 2 and resolve 2 of Infirm 2 hand traps just so they don't get access to Super Factorial. And then even when they do, you're down to 4 cards and they make a Terahertz or they make Heatsoul on top, and then they have like 3 or 4 hand traps in hand plus a Terahertz. It's like not like you can't really hand trap that deck with these conventional hand traps, so just belling the Super Factorial makes that much more clean. And it's also Ghost Bell is also another card that's good for Brandon, which I think is at minimum the 2nd best deck, if not the 1st best deck, depending on who you ask. I would prefer running Crow versus Bell, because Bell loses to this card called Branded Lost against Brandon, and anytime they play against you, you're just looking at this, staring at your hand, and be like, damn, I can't use this. But it's alright. They usually don't go for Lost for some reason, even going 2nd, which I think at least going 2nd you should try to prioritize Lost and Branded. But well, especially when they go first, they usually want to get Lost off of the Billion, so then you can still have some activation of Ghost Spell. You can Ghost Spell the Retribution target so they can't add it back to hand, which is another way to add Branded Fusion to hand. So it's alright. This card has decent coverage, and it at the worst it covers Called by the Grave, which Called by the Grave is actually really good against this deck specifically, because we dump our Evil Twin Link monster into the grave, and you need to revive them to get them going, and if they get colubied or crowed, it's kind of sad. You kind of lost half your engine right there. So overall, I've been happy with running Ghost Spell. I haven't been disappointed. And yeah, randomly it catches Nadir Serpents that people are running, so you know it's kind of funny there. For the extra deck, so everything in here I think is necessary, except for I'll go over the cards that are kind of flex spots, which is basically the second copy of Evil Twin Lila, the second Gigantic Spright, the Spright Sprint, and the Nightmare Griffin. Oh yeah, and I guess the Evil Trouble Sunny. Yeah, this is completely optional. This is the 1500 extra deck. It's nice because you can make this on a follow up just to kill your opponents. And you obviously can't make this if you go to Gigantic, but in the turns where you don't get Gigantic, or if your Gigantic gets hand trapped, you can make Trouble Sunny, which is you know, it's having a Trouble Sunny on board is way better than having a Kisakil on board, since you're not threatened by normal summon Ariana running over Kisakil. Yeah, it also has a non-targeting removal, although I don't think I've used its grave effect once with this deck. It just doesn't, the game doesn't just advance to that state. But it's okay. But if you want to run something else, like if you want to run Scythe Lock and put Dagda over this, yeah, I understand that you can do that too. The second Gigantic, so Gigantic Spright, you never need to resolve 2 Gigantic Sprites, right? If you resolve 1 Gigantic Spright, that's generally all you need for a game. You notice we're not running that many Spright monsters anyway, so it's half the time you don't even have a target to summon with a second Gigantic Spright. Just running 2 means that if the first gets hand trapped, you can still, on follow-up turns, if you live that long, you can still have access to your Gigantic Spright. And one time, the second one came in handy in so far as I had to make another rank 2 to go into Downer and Zeus, my opponent, but it had to be exactly Gigantic Spright because I had a leftover Evil Twin Link on the field plus another level 2 monster, and obviously you can't make a normal rank 2 of that. You have to make exactly Gigantic Spright of that. So you know, just the randomly came up that that I needed to be exactly Gigantic Spright, but yeah, you can cut this down to 1-2. This is also to respect Kashtira, because Kashtira is still being played. That deck is still a deck that exists, so you don't want to get unicorn on your Gigantic Spright. That's the same reason why I'm running 2 Lila. I don't want to get unicorns for my 1 copy of Twin Lila, so I'm just running these 2 second copy of this, mainly as respect to Kashtira. Sprint is a card that I didn't go into this month, and it's honestly the card that I'm most surprised that I didn't go into, because the idea of this is if you don't open any of your Life Twin monsters, but you do open, say, multiple Spright monsters, like a red and like a blue, and you can still do your Spright plays, go into Sprint first, dump 1 of your either Kisakil or a Lila, and then overlay into Gigantic, summon the other one. That's how you get your Life Twin engine going that way. And as you see, we're only running 9 copies of the Kisakil or Lila, the normal summon that gets you both out of deck, so I'm not guaranteed to draw into it. So I'm surprised that I didn't really break that much when I played this deck, but if you draw Kisakil and Lila too, like just the bad ones, I guess that also means you don't have to go into Sprint, because these count as half of an Evil Twin Link, so you can still Gigantic to the other one and not have to go through the Sprint route. But I wouldn't cut Sprint first if you're trying to maybe the extra deck. I would probably cut the Trouble Sunny first, or the Nightmare Griffin or Sprint, just for the hands where you don't open exactly optimal. And the Nightmare Griffin, so the idea with the IP targets with at Masquerena is you can easily make a co-link Griffin that draws you a card and then skill drains the field. But you only ever go into the Masquerena line going first if you don't get hand trapped at all. And this is a format where there are so many decks that are running so many hand traps that I've rarely gone into the IP line. Like, I would say maybe in only 20% of my games have I been not hand trapped to where I can end on the IP. So, and when I do end on the IP, you probably have like at least 2 to 3 hand traps backing you up already. especially since you drew a card from the Kizukill and you're gonna draw another card from Kizukill, Frost, and Kizukill on your opponent's turn, and then the monster you make off IP is always gonna be co-linked anyway, so you get another draw off that. So I've just never been in like a game state where that warranted me going Griffin over just using Nightmare Unicorn as a removal, especially since if you already have Ash, Valor, Imperm, IP, and a Kizukill killed for a Leela pop, like, do you really need to floodgate your opponent, right? I just haven't been into many game states that warranted going into this, but I guess I'll show you the game states that I did get myself into in these replays. So this is how you'd expect an average game where you go first to turn out. You open one starter and an extender, and our opponent ashes us, so we're gonna call by that. And add Leela, and normal summon Leela, and get Imperm. You know, average, get a hand trap twice in this format. It's just gonna be what happened. Even when your opponent is on 60 cards, apparently, you're still gonna get hand trapped twice. You just gotta deal with it. So now you go Kizukill Frost, and because we got hand trapped, we can't do the IP board. So this is the board that you're gonna most often end on after getting hand trapped. So you're gonna get blue, and then summon Jet, and then Jet gets starter, and then go into Spright Elf. Bring back the. Make sure it's important. Bring back the Kizukill first, because you want to lead off with starting going into Kizukill. That way you get the draw on your turn. If you can, obviously. If there's a weird game state that forces you to go into Leela, then obviously you go into this first. But ideally, you want to start with Kizukill, turn 1. That way you get the draw off the Kizukill, like here. And we draw into a very useful card. We can't really use until next turn, but it's fine because even after getting hand trapped, you still end on a board that has a couple interruptions on it. Plus, you're gonna draw a card from period and get this as follow up. You're gonna have 2 more hand traps, and you can draw into more hand traps, and it's just like that. And our opponent's on, they're on Brandon, so they're playing Bestials, and Bestials kind of, so it's weird. People don't know how to play Bestials versus this deck. Our opponent had a Druid Storm, right? The way to play Bestials, and Call by the Grave for that matter, is to go into draw phase and draw phase away my Evil Twin Links. Because Spright Elf is main phase only, and Kizukill is also main phase only. So if you just do it in the draw phase, then I can't have a chance to respond to that. And now, if you wait until the main phase, you're playing a game where we're just waiting for me we're just waiting for each other to target the cards in my grave so that we can revive them and chain to each other. And you can just avoid that if you just, do it early. Yeah, our opponent realizes that, and then they target Gigantic Sprite as a card I can't revive because they don't control a monster yet. So we get the card draw, and then opponent goes into Lubellion, and then Lubellion can only target the Spright Elf, or the Druid Storm can only target the Spright Elf. So with that, we're just gonna revive the Evil Twin Leela. We target that because I know they have a Magnamut in hand, so if they want to chain their Magnamut to the Leela, I can chain my Kizukill. So you gotta play around Bestials like that if your opponent gives you the opportunity to. And here this will pop the Lubellion. Now they will summon the Magnamut, targeting the other Kizukill, which is fine because I already have the one in rotation anyways. Now they're on to 2 cards in hand, and we still have a Carrot Negate live, which we I'm gonna Warner this right away just so that they don't get any follow-up on the next turn, so they can't get like a Sarnier just to stay alive for next turn possibly. I don't know. Opponent's on Fusion Deployment, and so I'm gonna negate this here because Sprite Carrot has 1900 defense and Magnamut has 2500 attack, so they could do this easy thing called enter battle phase, attack over my Spright Carrot, then I wouldn't have negate at all. So I'm like, you're just giving me a free card to negate this carrot shouldn't even be on the field for in the first place. So I'll take it. Thank you very much. Hopefully before my opponent realizes. That lets me sack the Kizukill, and then you can revive the Kizukill immediately with the Leela, and then you draw another card. That's like the 3rd card we drew this turn, or like the 2nd card we drew this turn, and we got a Surge. Didn't draw into a hand trap, and our opponent thrusts into Brand Fusion because our opponent Brand always has the perfect amount of non-engine and engine to draw into Brand Fusion. Unfortunately, our opponent has no cards in hand, so Brand Fusion actually is not much of a threat without cards in hand because you need to discard for Lubellion, so you can't make Mirror Jade that way, and you can't summon back Fallen Albaz that way to get a card to discard. So this Sanctifier, even though we can't target it, effectively does nothing because they don't have a discard for Albaz, so they don't even have the threat of making a Mirror Jade on my turn. So really, I can just do whatever the hell I want, including adding red, and then get special summoning the red, which negates the Sanctifier if they want to do anything anyways. Which, you know, they're going to use it as Graveyard Disruption, which I'm just going to call by the Cartasia, because we drew the card called by for turn. So, yep. And now our opponent's on basically nothing. We just have to search Gamma Burst, and the Gamma Burst just cleans it up. You go into Lila, into Kizukill, draw a card. I'm just doing this to style. Go into Trouble Sunny because we're not too locked on turn 3, and then attack over the Sanctifier with the Trouble Sunny, tag it out, go into these two, pop the Magnum Bud, and then activate Gamma Burst, and that's how you could even a deck with low power attack monsters like this can always has the ability to OTK on turn 3 if it passes back to you then. So this is a game for all my lab haters. We opened Ash plus Double Bell versus Labrynth. Now, you don't draw these every game, but you draw them a lot because you draw cards on your turn. And even without these, if you go first versus Labrynth, you set up a pop and like a carrot negate. So really, there's not very much Labrynth can do against you going second anyways. But especially not if we open hand like this. So here we're gonna go Jet, special Jet for starter for gets Ash. So we got Handtrap twice again, you know, nice. Go into Gigantic here. Gigantic is gonna special Kizukill since we opened the costume, so we can just do this and bring back the Kizukill, and then go into the Kizukill this way. Go into Lila, revive the Kizukill, draw a card, draw into Call by the Grave, nice. And then set 2, and then we still have this. Now they waited that long to get the bell, and it's a risky proposition for them using furniture against Spright, because if they do it too early, then I can just literally pop their Welcome Labrynth with my Kizukill and just start with Kizukill instead of Lila and just pop their back row. But if they wait, they do it. That's if they do it too early. But if they wait too long, then they risk me getting access to Spright Red, which also can just negate their furniture anyways, so it doesn't matter. But also, we have Double Bell in hand, what's called by the Grave, so yeah, they're gonna set a card, bring back Jet, Jet adds Spright starter, we're gonna activate Labrynth, and I'm gonna revive Lila to pop their set monster. That's gonna force out the Welcome Labrynth, just gets spelled. Oh yeah, notice how in each of these games, our opponent ended with 0 cards, and while we had 8+ cards in our hand. Because that's just what happens if you get your engine going. You have literally infinite cards. It's like you're playing a Runic with a battle phase. Okay, we got some quality gameplay in this game for you. 4 Handtraps, 0 starters. Excellent, just what I want to see. And our opponent begins with Reinforcement of the Army. Now, I am really tempted to just Ash the shit out of this, because I feel like people aren't just going to activate Reinforcement of the Army when they already have their search target in hand, because that plays really badly in the draw, and people are still playing draw despite, in my opinion, of it as a card. And anything you add automatically plays through 1 Ash. They add like a Scareclaw Rykard, for example. You Ash it, they can still link it off into Tryhard. They add a Raisin, you Ash the Raisin. They'll link it off to Rock, add the Raisin back to hand. They search Rhympart. Well, you can Ash the Rhympart, which is okay, but then that also turns on a bunch of their extenders, mainly the Mannadium Meeks, which they also run 3 of. Or it could be a Neo Space Connector, in which case it forces you to run the Ash anyways, because otherwise you're going to reduce the Ash. So, heavily consider Ashing this, and I decide not to, and I kind of get punished for it because our opponent opens Rykard, and I end up Ashing this anyways. So I just went neg there. And what's you don't want a Valor Rykard, by the way, if they begin with something like this, because 99% of the time this is going to be Mannadium, it's not going to be pure Scareclaw. And if they run Mannadium Meek or Mannadium Rhympart can be used to chain to Valor targeting Rykard to dodge the Valor negation and then get the search and get the free body anyway. So if you can, this is like a Raisin scenario with Vanguard Souls or Heavy Borger. where they can just dodge the Veiler, so Ash in the right card is more effective, even though it also feels bad. And they had the Reinhardt, so if we Veilered the right card there, we would have gotten blown out. Instead, because I have another hand trap, I get to Veiler the Reinhardt, and then hopefully this is enough to stop their plays. And hopefully they don't have the Meek in hand. Which, thank God, they run 6 copies of Meek and Calarium, and we're just lucky enough that they didn't draw into any of them. And our opponent's also lucky that we didn't draw into anything either, because we don't even have any level 2 monsters. Our opponent... Gameplay. Our opponent fails to draw into another one of their 12 extenders that could have gotten them out of the situation, so they turned the Primarch into defense, thinking that will save them. And I just need to draw any level 2 monster, and that's the best one. So Life Twin Lula gets unfortunately gets ashed. However, we do have the red in hand, so as long as we go into Gigantic and Gigantic resolves, we already have the Gamma Burst in hand, so we can use Elf to search a starter to get into their body, and that will be game through the Defense Vision Reinhardt anyways. And our opponent doesn't know we're on Gamma Burst, but I think they pretty much realize that they can't win in this position anymore. So Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm sorry, I tried to get more interactive games with Snake Eyes, but just a lot of the games with Snake Eyes just boil down to throwing hand traps at each other, and then the person who threw the hand traps at them kills the opponent on turn 2, or if the hand traps didn't resolve or you didn't draw hand traps, then you automatically lose to their board turn 1. So it's just that this kind of format, this kind of matchup between 2 decks that run 15 plus hand traps versus each other, so a lot of times there's just not much interaction going on. And such as here, where our opponent's gonna discard Ash for Ash, and that's the easiest Infernal in my life. Normally, you should keep the Ash in hand, because if you did, you could still normal summon Ash, and then at least do something. And whereas this, they just ended on nothing. And here we're gonna go Leela for Ezekiel Frost, Spright Blue, Special Red, and get Drolled. Our opponent's still on Droll. It's their mistake, because this Droll literally did nothing this game. Like, we're going to the live Evil Twin Link forward just to pop the last back row. So Ezekiel bring back Leela, pop their back row, and yeah, it's sorry, but like literally every game against Snake Eyes, no matter who wins, it's basically just gonna look like this. I haven't had an interactive game with Snake Eyes yet while playing this deck. So here I'm gonna show you the worst game I ever played in my life. I literally could not have played this game any worse. So we go summon Life Twin Lila, I get Max Seed, and then I have Ash. And that is the end of the good plays I made this game. As you're gonna see, I started messing up. That's fast and early. So here comes Gigantic Spright. Gigantic Spright, detach Lila, right? Okay, keep that in mind. Add blue, add a special blue, add Jet, add starter, and then you have to. If you detach Lila off Gigantic Spright, you have to link up to Gigantic Spright. You have to get this into the grave. Because right now, all I have is a Lila engrave to revive with Elf, which means that when I revive Lila, I can't go into the Kisakil Link 2, I have to go into the Lila Link 2, and because I start up the Lila Link 2, that means I can't get the draw off the Kisakil Link 2, so I don't control another Lila monster. So I just lost a draw for nothing. Yeah, don't... Make sure you have a way to get the Kisakil back on the field before you link off to your Evil Twins, otherwise you're gonna be like me and look like a fool. Okay, so that's just my turn, my opponent's turn. There's Special Fenrir, right? We're gonna bring back Lila just to pop it, and then the Fenrir's gonna pop the Spright Elf, which is fine because, if we run 2 copies, I'm just gonna chain Elf to get the Jet back, and then get another draw, or I'm gonna get another add. So pop the Fenrir, Spright Elf goes away, it's whatever, it's done its job, and then add a starter hand, right? And our opponent normal summons Planet Pathfinder. So I let this go because I'm thinking, they shouldn't have more Kashtira. If they have any other Kashtira monster, why wouldn't you just summon it, attack on my card, and then use Planet Pathfinder, and then be able to use Race Off for free, right? So that sequencing, makes sense, right? Logically, I get to add a draw a card off Kisakil, but they have another monster, they have Ogre. So why didn't you just Because you're gonna enter battle phase to attack over the character anyways. Why did you wait that long? I don't... What? So, yeah. Now they're also blocked from some of the other Kashtira monsters, so now their Race Off adds Rise Heart. But, oh no, actually they could summon more Kashtira monsters because they have Theosis. Now they're gonna Unicorn, and you're not Emperor. I gotta ask you, why am I informing this? Okay? To add Birth, they already normal summon and nothing is banished. And I know they have Rise Star in hand. Why am I impriming the Unicorn? This is literally the worst play in the entire game. This literally almost cost me the game. Because they have a Rise Star in hand, and this adding Birth does nothing. So now, surprise, surprise, they go into Shangri era, and now they're gonna special the Rise Heart that they added that I know they had, that I've brain farted, and now they get to banish my cards, and now because they trigger Shangri, now they can make it a Rise Heart too. So now there's a chance that I completely lose this game, and they're gonna pop one of my monsters with Race Off, and then thankfully they also messed up. They also go into Kashtira Rise Heart and then pass. Now, if you really wanted to be safe, you should have made second or Shangri era with your 2 Kashtira monsters, then go into the Rise Heart. That way your Rise Heart would have 3 materials, then you can pop one of my other Link monsters. But for now, they're gonna activate Prep, which does nothing. Then you're gonna trigger Shangri era, get a Unicorn, and pop another one. Now you see, if they had made a 3 material Rise Heart immediately, I would have no monster on board. But because they made a 1 material Rise Heart, and they kept a Rise Heart on the field for whatever god knows what reason, I have a monster on board, so I can suddenly snitch, add my Lila Treat, special it, and then if you go into, this is what I'm talking about, specifically go into Gigantic Spright with a Evil Twin Link monster, and then main phase 2 go into Downer, and then clear the entire board. And yeah, our opponent, you know, not our best. Sometimes when you play Master Duel, it's not your best day, you or your opponent, and you just get these bad games like this. So if you've watched all of those replays, first of all, thank you. You're a god. I really appreciate the boost in watch time, and like, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. And secondly, we played 5 different decks in those 5 replays. So the meta is super diverse right now, even with popular in the game, because we don't have Bonfire and because Maxi still exists. It's not anywhere close to tier 0 yet. There's anywhere between like 6 or even more potentially viable top tier decks that I could see myself grinding the DC Cup with, which is it puts me in a bit of a difficult situation because I have no idea what I'm gonna play for Duelist Cup next month, and I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But you know, all else fails, you can play a deck that runs 15 to 17 hand traps and probably do at least okay with it, you know.